Let the dragon consume you! Enemy sighted. Stop the payload! Stop the payload! In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The Birdwatcher's back at it one more time. Here's your host, Brian and Clay. They're about to bring you some sweet Overwatch action.
And we're back. So, welcome back to another episode of the Birdwatchers. This is going to be episode 43. We're going to go over the Stage 1 playoffs, but a bit of news. So, as you can tell, it's still just me. Clay will be back. He needed a bit more time. We spoke. He needed a bit more time to get stuff together and in order, and then he'll be back on to grace us with, his beautiful voice and insight on these matches that we cover. And, outside of that, we're gonna get into it as normal. It'll be a little shorter episode. We're only gonna do 2 matches today. One being the Atlanta Reign match, the other one being the finals. We'll keep that little secret for people who haven't watched it yet, if they're just now listening to this, to get that update. I don't want to spoil it for them. But a bit of news at the top. So, unfortunately, sad news. You guys may have heard or seen, Defren has retired from the Overwatch League after Stage 1. So he will be staying on as a Atlanta Reign streamer. So that's a little bit of a silver lining there, which is great. But he will no longer be participating in standard matches and such. He did say, though, that he might possibly be coming out to the homestand game in Atlanta. So that would be kind of cool for fans who want to, see him, get stuff signed. I'm sure he'll be happy to kind of mingle. But his reasoning, based on the videos and the write-up he did on Twitter, was that he just wanted to go back to the comfy lifestyle of streaming, give him a little bit more variety, because he's going to start streaming other games as well as Overwatch. So that could be cool to watch. So he'll still be around. He won't be in the league. We did get our time to see him play. He did a bunch of cool stuff, in something that, became a stagnant meta for GOATs. A lot was there. So I'm happy that we got to see Defren on the main stage. And, it's an ending, but it's not a sad one, right? It's a nice ending, which is a good thing. So we can look forward to that. So outside of that news, we had the Diamond Level event, the Atlanta Royal Family watch party event, and it was another success. I mean, these have all been great because of you all, and the other fans have been coming out to cheer on the team, eat good food, hang out, have drinks and stuff like that. And it's been great, and we'll continue doing them. But yeah, the watch party event for the first playoff game, stage playoff game for Atlanta Reign that we had was a success. So thanks for everyone coming out. I think we had like 270 people for this one, which is usually what we expect for the Diamond event, because that's the mid-level tier, right? And that was at Battle and Brew, so everybody was happy. And we'll talk about that game in a second. But further news is that we recently announced that we have new branding. So if you go to the Twitter, which is at ATL Royal Family, and on that page you'll see the reveal video, the new branding. It's awesome. It's great. The art was done by a local artist here. She really helped us out. So check that out. And on top of that, we also announced that the next event will be the second Grandmaster event. So Grandmasters are largest events, right? And that's similar to the first event we threw for Atlanta Reign's debut, which was huge, like over 500 people. This one won't be that size due to limitations of the venue size for this one. It will be at the Annex Bookstore for this event, and tickets are limited. So you're gonna have to go to Eventbrite, sign up, stuff like that, get your ticket. The tickets are free though, so there's no cost to these tickets. It's still a free event, just a smaller venue size. And on top of that, drum roll, this event is sponsored by Coca-Cola. So yeah, Coca-Cola is helping us out here. So that could be cool. There's going to be, the varsity is going to be handling food at the event with food trucks. There'll be some free food, and then also free drinks provided by Coca-Cola. It'll be a big event. It'll be fun, right? Come out if you can. It is on a Thursday, so that's the only drawback. But it's that Thursday that the Stage 2 starts off for the league, and we'll be playing Boston that night. I think it all starts off at 7. So get there, get your ticket and get there soon and come hang out, and we'll keep this train rolling. And I'll also put the Twitter info in the show notes for this episode in case people need to know what that is. One more time, it's at ATL Royal Family on Twitter. So how we're going to handle this episode today, I'm not going to do standings at the top, right? Because I kind of want to leave a little bit of mystery, kind of go through it with you all. So we're going to start with the Atlanta Reign game. Before that game started, we had the Thursday match, which was Seoul Dynasty versus New York Excelsior. And the turnout for that one surprised everyone. Seoul Dynasty winning it 3-1 and moving into the next round. And then we had Boston Uprising facing Vancouver Titans, and Vancouver Titans in classic fashion dominated here 3-0. And then moving into the next round. So this takes us into Friday, which is where we play. We played the Philadelphia Fusion. And also that day you had San Francisco play the Toronto Defiant. San Francisco showing out, proving to everyone that although they had an easy regular season schedule, the stage playoffs, they still came to play. They beat Toronto Defiant 3-0. So now we're just going to go ahead and hop directly into the Atlanta Reign game. And then once we finish that, I'll go into the remainder of the brackets so we can find out who made it to the finals, and then we'll go through that game as well. So to start things off, we have Reign versus Fusion. We played them once. It's the Telecomm Wars Part 2, and we got close, but we didn't finish up correctly, and Fusion ended up taking it. So we're kind of coming in with a chip on our shoulder, right, to prove something. And this was a good one. This is a very close one all the way throughout. There are a few mistakes on both sides, but we start off with Ilios here, so our control map. And for anybody who doesn't know, for playoffs, they have a format where there's not a preset map. There's not a preset list of maps that they play. So after the first map, the loser picks the next map, and it's the first one to 4 wins, the first one to 4 wins who takes the cake here. So this one's first to 3. The finals is first to 4. My bad. So first to 3 wins here, takes the map and moves on. All right, so we start with Ilios. Lighthouse is the first round here, and Fusion come out dominant for the first half. And the Reign kind of dominate the second half, but the Fusion end up winning after the final fight to take this round. So this is a good back and forth here to start out. We move to Well, and naturally it's Torb time, right? Defran plays Torb on this map majority of the time, and it usually works out in our favor, and it does here. There is a big play by Pokpo, where we're doing this bunker comp, so he's on Orisa, and he has a great halt pull on Boombox as right when he transes, and uses Transcendence, and it's great because it pulls him in the well, gets rid of it, and we're able to take it. After that, we end up taking it 100-0 here, so it's very dominant since Fusion were never able to kind of break through this comp. We move to Ruins, and we start out strong again. But the thing that scared me and most other people is that we almost gave this away. There was a point where we were playing too aggressive after capturing the point, and Neptuno ended up sneaking back behind us on Lucio to cap that point. We turned around, and then Fusion forced a fight, so it got in their favor. They flipped it, and after that point, they held it for a pretty long time. Luckily, we were able to win that final fight to decide who was going to take the map, and we end up taking it, taking the whole thing and going to 1-0 on Fusion. So we moved to Kings Row next. Kings Row is kind of back and forth for us. I wouldn't say we're the kings of this map, but we do pretty well. So we start off with Fusion on attack here. Fusion get a quick cap on point 1, and the Reign gained that initial time back, even though it's very fast. They gain it back by holding that arch. So it's the arch right after you unlock point, and we gain that time back, but then we stonewall Fusion as they try to progress, and they're only able to make it to about point 2. Pretty close to it. So we have a short trek. So we move to Reign on attack. Reign, we struggle a little bit on point 1, but we're able to cap and have a solid street performance. So, naturally they didn't get that far, but we get stonewalled as well, right at that same point that we stopped Fusion. And during the final fight, it looks like we're about to win it. And, Fusion step up, Neptuno ends up dropping the beat at the perfect time, and then Boombox just pops off on Zenyatta, which he's done in the past. They swing it back in their favor, and they end up stealing this map from us. I'm going to say steal because it felt like we had this one, and that ties it up 1-1 overall. We then move to Volskaya, and Fusion kind of show out here. We start with Atlanta on attack. We struggle on point 1. We do a bit better on point 2. We end up capping with about, I want to say 2 minutes and 30 seconds remaining. Fusion then goes on attack, and they completely outshine us. They don't have the same issues we have, and they cap both points with about 5 minutes remaining, so double the time, right? So moving to round 2, and round 2 is interesting for the wrong reasons. So Rain cap point 1, and then we get about 1 shot at point 2, but Poco has an insane Diva Bomb to kind of save this fight and hold point 2 for Fusion, and then Fusion go on attack, and we burn about half their time trying to stop them from point 1. They end up capping because Poco has another great clutch bomb, and then as we move to point 2, Rain have a very convincing defense. They almost step it up, and I don't know if it forces Carpe to swap or if it was just a choice, but Carpe does swap to Doomfist. And I don't know if this was the plan. I haven't really read anything, but what they do is he comes in, pretty much causes a bunch of havoc, and then acts like he's running away. And as he's running away, Neptuno again does a back cap, but this time we don't see it coming, and we actually C9 here and give them the map, making it 2-1. This is very disappointing. And you could hear it from the fans in this case when this happened, and you could see it on, I think they do a cut to Moss's face cam, and he has his headset off, just kind of looking up as like, how did we let that happen? Just poor awareness all around, right? This pulls us to Route 66. So Fusion win it here, they win it all, or we can tie it up and try to push it to map 5. We start with attack. So Rain's on attack here, and Fusion don't make this easy. You can definitely tell they're feeding on that momentum from that back cap win on Volskaya. And the pressure they bring is just intense here. We barely make it to bridge, and we're never able to kind of push past it because Fusion do play that high ground so well, and don't give us any room of error to capitalize on. So we're held short of point 2, and then Fusion is on attack, and we have a similarly strong defense. But once again, Poco kind of opens it up with a clutch bomb in overtime that allows Fusion to edge out that little bit they needed to cap, and they close this map out 3-1, knocking Rain out of the playoffs and moving forward. So yeah, it was a good game. It was exciting. It was kind of, actually watching this more than once helped me see, because at first it just felt like, oh, we were just playing poorly and giving away the map. But Fusion definitely put some pressure on us that forced us into certain situations that led to them and ending this map and moving on forward. So that being said, so this was on Friday, they took it 3-1 moving forward. So what we have now is on Saturday is the next round of the playoffs. So the winners from the 2 previous days. We have Seoul Dynasty versus Vancouver Titans. Vancouver Titans again showing that they're dominant in this stage, 4-0ing Seoul Dynasty, and then San Francisco Shock versus Philadelphia Fusion. Shock once again stepping up, going 4-0 and rolling over the Fusion. So it's interesting, right? Because at this point, we had Seoul beating New York, which everybody thought New York and Titans were on the same level, but then you have Titans just destroying Seoul, and this is kind of the same theme of this whole meta, right? This GOATS meta in 3-3-3 is it's so team focused that if your team slips up a bit, it doesn't matter who's the better team, anyone can edge it out and take a win. So this takes us to our finals, and our final is actually San Francisco Shock versus Vancouver Titans. People knew the Titans would be there. No one thought the San Francisco Shock would be there. And this kind of lends to the fact that they had an easier regular season schedule. So people thought that, they wouldn't be able to compete when the playoffs happened, because a lot of these teams had harder schedules. That's not the case. They're playing at their peak right now, at the top of their game. Sinatra, I think, at this point is number 1 in the league as far as damage done per 10 minutes, which is insane. So we'll hop into it, right? This one is a drag out fight, right? This is why I'm only doing 2 for this one, so we can actually get into this and talk about it. So we start with Nepal, our control map. We start on Village, and Titans start off the match just dominant, 100-0, right? Something we've seen them do to a lot of teams. We then move to the sanctuary round, and Shock do the same thing. They answer back and they have dominant display, and they take this round 100-0. So we move to Shrine, and this one's a little more back and forth. Titans starting off on the upper hand. This round has a lot of back and forth, but there's a lot of important engagements that happen. It almost feels like on this map, it's one continuous fight from beginning to end, right? Because there's a lot of stalling going on, so on and so forth. But Shock win the most important engagements overall, and they end up taking this round and starting off with a win in their favor. So we're 1-0 in Shock's favor. We move to Numbani, and I don't know if the Titans took it personally, which they probably should have. But Shock on attack here get nothing done. Titans absolutely stonewall them from the beginning and barely budge throughout. Hawksaw, and people have talked about this, that, you know, Brogan is one of those characters. Yeah, she has her shield, the heals, and it's kind of, her mechanics are straightforward for players. But the players still that play her at you know, the peak level, it's a completely different thing to watch, and it's very effective naturally. So Hawksaw on Brogan here is playing out of his mind. He's doing great at getting the initial first picks and fights. So there are a lot of engagements, but he's either taking out the opponent's Brogan or just another character to get that fight to a 5-6 status and always force it in Titan's favor. And that's what they do here. Shock is barely able to get one tick on the point, and they end up getting full held. And then Titans go on attack, and the Shock actually do pretty well on defense, but there's one team fight that they're unable to pull off their Grav bomb combo when they have the economy advantage, and it goes in Titans' favor. They win that fight, and they end up capping the little bit they needed, and they now tie it up 1-1. So let's go to Anubis. So, you know, Clay's favorite map. Never let him forget that. But we start with Shock on attack here, and Shock have a solid first fight to get them about 80% of point one, and then after that they kind of struggle throughout and they get stonewalled. But you have Choi Hoibin, I hope I said that right. Choi Hoibin has a great bomb here that kind of extends it through overtime. They get their run, they take that momentum, they go to point two, which happens a lot on Anubis, and they take it immediately, right? So they gain all that time back they lost trying to fight for point one. And then we have Titans on attack here, and the Titans have less trouble on point one, but actually struggle on point two. And they're only able to complete it with about half the time that Shock had remaining, even though their attempt was different. We moved to round two now for both teams, and with only about a minute left, Titans rush point one and they win that initial fight and get a quick cap, which is great. Then they go to point two and do something surprising where they're able to drag this fight out long enough. There's a point where they swap to a Hammond to get back to keep that fight going, and they actually get like 66% of point two, which is something that, you know, with about a minute to do this whole round is impressive. And then the Shock make it to point two with fairly ease, but then they start to have a bit of trouble, even though they have more time than the Titans had on point two. And that's until Choi Hoibin again has a huge 3K bomb that wins this map pretty much for the Shock, and now they're up 2-1. So we have a bit of back and forth here, and that continues to be a theme. So we move to this Dorado, right? And this one's a little bit, I wouldn't say this is a map of the match, because this is probably the opposite of the map of the match, because it's kind of straightforward. I would say Anubis is my map of the match for this one. And I didn't do one for the rain game, but I'll let you guys pick that one. But for Dorado, we have Shock starting on attack here, and the Titans make it super difficult for them. They have a fight that's extremely hard the whole time. Like every time it feels like the cart's just inching one by one, right? Little short dashes as they get back and fight, and they barely, I mean, they get super close to point two, but they do get held here, which is important because the Titans on attack, they do not have the same issue at all. They're able to just like cruise the card along, and they end up capping with plenty of time to spare. I think it's only 4 minutes or high 3 minutes there. And they tied up 2-2. Move to another control map in this series. So remember, this is best of 7. Well, first to 4 in a 7 map series, right? Max. So Ilios, our control map again, and the Shock show up again. So it's obvious that they're probably a little bit better than the Titans when it comes to control maps. On Lighthouse, you know, they start off dominantly, but the Titans do put up some resistance here. They flip it, and then towards the end, when it's about tied up, Shock have a good attempt at the fight, and they end up, you know, winning this one based on alt economy alone, and then close that round out. That takes us to Ruins, where the Titans once again kind of put up, Shock start off dominantly towards the end. Titans flip it, but this time they hold out and they end up stealing this round from him. And then Somin Soo comes out on McCree on Well here, which is something we've seen him play. Somin Soo's McCree is very dangerous. Probably one of the better ones in the league, although because of this meta, we haven't seen him play much of it. But when he does play that protect the McCree style in this meta, it's something that is very difficult for teams to deal with. So he goes on a rampage here, does really good, to be honest. But the Titans kind of give it up to the Shock towards the end, and they get the second wind and then flip and hold to win the map and go up 3-2. So they actually do on Wells, they do what Titans did to them on Lighthouse and Ruins, with them having the dominant lead and then taking it back. So they close out. So Shock is up still, and then we move into King's Row. Titans have to answer this here because they don't want to give the Shock the win, right? Because it's the first one to 4 wins. Shock on attack. Shock set up a solid pace throughout this map. It's pretty it's pretty consistent, but they have an issue finishing up, and Titans hold them pretty close to 0.3. Titans, again, kind of mimic them, have a similar pace, but they don't have that same struggle that the Shock did on that final stretch to 0.3. They end up capping and they tie it up. So it's 3-3, and they push back and forth. In this match, we go to the final kind of resolution of this whole thing, to break this tie and find out who's our stage 1 playoff champions. So Rialto, how fitting, one of the newer maps, right? Shock start off on attack here, and they don't really encounter any real resistance moving through this map until about 0.3. They're able to crack that defense after a few fight, and they finish with exactly 1 minute remaining. And then Titans answer back with a statement of their own. They absolutely fly through Rialto, so much so that they finish with 4:26 on the clock, and that's beating the league record up to this point by almost a whole minute. Absolutely nuts. So on round 2, Shock start off round 2 on attack. They don't have much time, so they're only able to get to that 0.1 cap, but they're not able to cap it, so it's right in front. And then when the Titans go, they have plenty of time, right? So the Shock do put up a great attempt here to try to minimize their fights and keep it in their advantage, but there's just too much time to deal with such a short distance. Maybe if Shock got past 0.1, they would have a better shot, and they probably could have pulled this one out, but they aren't. Titans are able to cap it. They win the final map. They win the whole match. They become your stage 1 playoff winners. So Titans have had a hell of a run this stage, and a lot of people thought that they would be good coming in because Runaway had that synergy in the books already. They just had to work about moving up to another level, but they surprised everyone with what they pulled off here, especially with New York kind of falling in the earlier round of the playoffs. So hats off to them. That to them, Shock. They lost, but I think everyone was talking about how surprised they were that they made it that far, right? Because it's one of those cases where when you have an easy regular schedule, you don't really have that warm up towards the end to say, okay, well, now you're playing against the best of the best. You're playing against the top 8 in this one. Can you pull it off? Well, no, everybody thought no, but everybody on their team stepped up, and they showed that they're still one of the highest skill capped teams in the league. And that's something we talked about as well when we did our playoff predictions and such, that we thought they had a lot of talent, but we just didn't know how they were going to pick who's going to play and who plays with who. But they figured it out. So that turned out not to be a problem. But that's it. That's how we wrapped up. We wrapped up with Vancouver winning. So stage 1 playoffs are in the book. Stage 2 playoffs are starting in just a bit of time since this goes up, and that should be equally exciting, right? You have teams ready to go and prove something, especially after this performance, and that's something that makes the stage playoffs so unique to other leagues and other sports, right? In other sports, you kind of just have the season and then you have the playoffs at the end, but we have these little tournaments that they don't affect anything, right? They don't affect any records. So if anybody thought that's not how that works. It's mainly just money for the team. It's like mini tournaments within right? And it's more excitement for the fans, so you can see teams that may not play each other that regularly, right? Because if you have a team in a Pacific Division versus Atlantic, they might not play much, or they might play once. So you might get to see them play again in a stage playoff if both teams are good enough. And granted, that would be a good match because they're both performing well. So there's a benefit there. And all that to be said, we'll be back soon. Hopefully Clay is back and has everything wrapped up, and we can do that. We also have something in the works, possibly, for the podcast where we want to do a little more coverage, especially of contenders, because we haven't had a chance. Like when contenders and the regular season is running, or the main season is running, it's very difficult to juggle both. But we do want to talk about the stuff that's going on down there, especially with the Atlanta Academy, since a lot of things have shifted around there. And there's some new teams as well that have made it into this contender season. So we want to talk about that. But that being said, as usual, you can contact us at Gmail at thebirdwatcherspodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter if you want to know everything that's going on, what we're involved in. We have links and stuff like that on there as well. It's changed actually. So it's no longer what it was before. It's now at podcast TBW. So at podcast TBW, that's been updated. So we got that. So that's cool. It's now easier. No numbers. Facebook and YouTube, we're the Bird Watchers, and on Reddit and Instagram, we're the Bird Watchers Podcast. So anywhere we can be found. Another random news thing that just happened as I'm recording this is that the competitive Overwatch Reddit has hit 200,000 subscribers, which is amazing, right? I remember when we were talking about when it hit 150, which that was exciting times in the earlier time of the episode. So it's great to see that community is growing. The content's still great, the quality's still there, the moderators are still absolutely killing it. It's a great job from them because they keep the content flowing. They try to mitigate overlap, so it's not just swamped with stuff. So hop in there, have some discussions, get deeper into the league, get into more of the nuance. We'll be there, but until next time, as always, thank you for listening, guys, and we'll see you next episode.
I have destroyed more of your kind than I can count.